Please turn your cell phones to silent if you would. It'd be so kind enough to do that. Also, for those that have never been to a meeting before, the way things work here, once we're done with taking roll and reviewing the minutes from the last meeting, we go over city presents on each item. After they're done with their presentation, it's open up just to the commission for technical questions. Once we're done with those, we open it up to the public for public commentary. If you have something to say, we please ask you step up to the microphone, state your name and address so we have it for the minutes. After public commentary is over, we close that and bring it back to the commission for discussion and usually a vote, and then we move on to the next item. With that, let's call the roll.
David Boychuk.
Present.
Ed Bowen. Jeffrey Tomes.
Here.
Thomas Wojtek.
Here.
John Hens.
Here.
Steve Cummings.
Here.
Kathleen Kropp.
Here.
Gary Gray.
Here.
Donna Laurie. Robert Weigert. Carl Nollenberger.
Okay, moving on to the approval of the minutes from February 17th. Do we have any corrections or additions, deletions, et cetera, et cetera?
Move to approve.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion clearly passed. Let's move on to item number 1, stormwater utility annexation number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
This is the first of two similar requests, both being annexations. Back in 2012, the city of Oshkosh purchased 2 tracts of land located between Jackson Street and North Main Street. The first annexation, called Stormwater Utility Annexation Number 1, is a 4.836 acre parcel located, like I said, between Jackson Street and North Main Street. The size of the annexation is approximately 1,275 feet long by 165 feet wide. Currently has a dual zoning in the town of Oshkosh. First one being M1 Light Industrial District on the eastern half, and R1 Residential District, non-subdivided on the western half. The current use of the property, it's predominantly, it's currently undeveloped. Let me go to the next photo here. Whoop. Currently undeveloped, pretty much vacant land on the eastern half, and formerly, I believe the city has since cleared. There was once a bunch of scrub trees on the western half of the property. The reason for the annexation is that the city is proposing 2 stormwater detention basins. The first one being located on the first annexation request, located here, and a second stormwater detention basin located on the second annexation request. The proposed basins are going to be designed to provide relief to the Nicolay Court watershed, as well as the Libby Avenue watershed. The design and engineering was slated for later this year in 2015, and construction to occur in 2016. Once the properties are located in the city, with the proposed zoning designation, the city is proposing an R1 residential district zoning designation for this annexation. They will have to come back before the City Plan Commission for a conditional use permit. The Department of Public Works has reviewed the request and reported that city or sanitary sewer and water facilities won't be needed for this property due to its proposed use of being a stormwater detention facility. The Oshkosh Fire and Police Departments have reviewed the request and do not have any concerns with providing services to the property. Staff is in support of the this annexation request, and is requesting it with a temporary and permanent zoning of R1 single-family district as requested.
All right, thank you. Technical questions? David?
Can I see what the zoning is of the adjacent properties?
Sure. To the south, there is R1 mostly to the south here, a little blob of R2, and then C1, Neighborhood Business District. To the north, you got R3 multifamily and R3 PD. This is the proposed site of the veterans home that went through this body about 6 months ago, I'd say. To the east, we got M2, but the immediate land use adjacent is currently agricultural. And then to the west, we have this little sliver of R1, which is still in the town of Oshkosh, and then C2, which I believe this is a bank.
How did you come up with an R1 proposed zoning?
All right, I'm sorry I didn't explain that. This is a city's comprehensive land use plan. The majority of it was slated for residential in use. That's yellow color. Proposed sliver over here is recommended for commercial land uses. With it being one parcel, by code, we're only allowed to assign it one zone district. We can't have split zoning on a single parcel. So we took a look at it and decided that R1 would be most consistent with the comp plan, as it would tie in with the lands to the south. Now, that being said, you're aware that the city is currently revamping its zoning ordinance, and once the new zoning ordinance is in place, the entire city is going to be remapped, and this will be assigned a institutional zoning classification. So once the new zoning ordinance is in place, it's going to change to that institutional zoning class.
Let's go with Jeff and then Gary.
On the west side of that property that we're annexing, there seems to be some buildings there.
These have all been removed, I believe, correct, Steve?
Okay, so there's no, okay, never mind.
Gary?
Yes, this may sound like a unusual question, maybe it is, but how big is the proposed detention pond on that lot? The staff mentioned that there's scrub trees on those lots, but I don't think 40 feet tall trees are scrub trees, and it's unfortunate that we're going to be presumably removing all those, what I would consider big trees on those two lots.
Steve, do you have any information on the design?
We have not looked into what trees, what species are out there at all. Majority of the lot is going to need to be cleared, if not all of the trees on it, in order to create the channel, the deep channel, and then an access way around the property to do that. That said, we will be doing a little bit of landscaping up front, obviously, to make sure we have some trees and shrubs around the street, so it's just not a barren ditch.
Okay, yeah, and that was my second question in regards to landscaping. I mean, here we're going to have open space with a hole with water in it and two major streets along the side of it, and it would be nice if it could be landscaped somehow to maybe block the view from the Jackson Street and Main Street. Just an idea, perhaps. I don't know how practical it would be.
Well, we will need to be able to keep access all the way around it for vehicles, so it's going to have a flat spot. That said, we can get some vegetation probably planted in the corners of the front to actually screen the vision through is probably not practical.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And it would be a conditional use permit with the proposed zoning, and then keep in mind this request is to actually bring the land into the city. The actual pond is not being reviewed at this time.
But it will be.
Yes, well, potentially.
Go ahead, Jeff.
You said that with the proposed zoning, the R1, you're going to put a conditional use permit on it too?
The stormwater facility would be a conditional use in the R1 district.
Other technical questions, Gary?
I'm confused. We're just approving or not approving the annexation tonight, right?
Annexation.
And zoning,
That's it. Yeah,
and R1 change zoning.
Oh, okay, and the things in R1 zoning, but no conditional uses.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
David?
When would be the appropriate time to discuss the zoning, irrespective of what we will do in the future? At this time, technical or discussion?
Well, at this meeting, yeah, you could do it for technical, or you could do it now. If you have questions that Steve can answer.
He's up there.
Okay, I have some trouble with an R1 zoning when you're having, certainly the long term, that this is not going to change in use. But why make the R1 and then the transition yard to the north, to the property to the north, that are going to be, one is stable, but one may redevelop that, and so why not make that a higher zoning level, and so you don't have that transitional yard situation?
Are you referring to this slot
Yeah.
here? This is currently under development for a veterans home, so it is
That's multiple?
multifamily, correct?
Okay, so why not make it multifamily?
Well, yeah, you could make it multiple family. Multiple family would require a conditional use for the permit as well. It would still be consistent with the comprehensive plan, the understanding that it's going to be a detention facility owned by the municipality. Yeah, the R1 was just consistent with what was next door to the south. You could do an R3 too. It wouldn't really change
Yeah,
anything.
I would suggest that we do R3,
What's the reasoning?
because then irrespective of what happens to the property, if that's the north, that you have R3 to R3.
Yeah, but I mean, we already have an R1 on half the property, and the other half is abutted next to an R1 location, so I don't see what the difference would be.
Well, it's M1, and it's 75% is M1.
What I'm saying is that part of it is R1 now, part of it's M1, but that M1 abuts next to an R1, so making both the R1 seems like a transition from the things from the south up to the north. I'm not sure what your point is, why you would want to change it to an R3.
Because the R3 is what's to the north, and I'm looking at that either at this time or future, then it puts the burden, transitional yard burden on the properties to the north.
Well, it's going to be
it's
rezoned to
rezoned.
institutional once a new zoning ordinance is adopted within a year, I believe.
Right, but I guess to address David's question, as it sits now, even with the R1 development, the properties to the north are under development right now. One is fully developed and the other's under development, already has its setback in place. So there wouldn't be any additional transyard that would be required for the northern properties that are already approved and developed. I don't see them going away at any time. One isn't even finished being built yet, and the other is still pretty new. But again, as far as function, it doesn't really make a difference.
Okay, other technical questions? Okay, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Come on up, ma'am.
My name is Peggy Rand. I live at 210 Bacon Avenue, and my property abuts that just to the south. And I guess my question would be, if you're putting in a water retention basin, how close is that going to be to the property line?
Again, we do not have final design done. We will need to have a access way of at least a 10 to 12-foot flat area along the property line before we start the side slope down into the detention basin. I believe this area is proposed to be a dry basin, not a wet basin here, so there will not be a permanent pool of water in this facility. The permanent pool will be on the next annexation part that we're going to be talking about.
Anybody else here to speak to this item today? Seeing none, back to the commission.
Move for approval.
Second.
Questions on the motion? All right, take a roll, take a vote there.
Warsack.
No.
Holmes.
Aye.
Hintz.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Crop.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Boyton.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-1.
Okay, let's move on to item number 2, stormwater utility annexation number 2.
All right, this is the second request for the annexations for these two ponds. Up on the screen, I have the current land use and zoning map. Subject area here, it's approximately 888 feet deep and 330 feet wide, encompassing about 6.7 acres. And the city purchased this land back in 2012 and is proposing to annex it into the city for development of I believe, a wet detention basin on its property. This is a look of the comprehensive land use plan. In this case, the comprehensive plan has a industrial land use recommendation on the site, resulting in, we're going to be recommending a zoning of a M1 light industrial district for the property to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And here's another aerial view of the site. The site, I believe, was formerly a tree nursery. That's obviously not being used for a nursery any longer. The basin will be located on site, and the two basins will be connected via easement along the backs of the apartments and the proposed veterans home. Again, similar to the last request, the city is in support and recommending approval of the stormwater utility annexation 2 with a temporary and permanent zoning of M1 light industrial district as requested.
All right, technical questions. Jeff?
Does the M1 designation require a conditional use permit for the pond, or does the pond? Because I wouldn't be in favor of not having a conditional use permit so we can review the plan site.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if I could ask,
Here, Jeff.
okay,
We're still answering the first.
I understand that, but I just was trying to fill in some dead space.
Dead space is okay in plan commission meetings.
Okay.
Bad on the radio, bad on TV, it's okay for plan commission.
If you want to ask somebody else to keep it going, that's fine. He can come back and answer it.
Okay, Gary, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, is this going to be a wet basin or a dry basin?
This one would be a wet basin, correct?
Okay.
Any other questions to fill in the time? Steve?
Because this was a tree nursery at one time, are any of those trees capable of being moved and relocated? Too large?
I can't answer that at this point in time, but we can certainly have the forester go through, and if it works out for them, we have the great.
You ready for us, David?
Sure. Yeah, I believe it would still require the conditional use permit. Come back through. If it was an M3, if it was a heavy industrial, it would not.
John?
With the new zoning ordinance coming through, will this be changing also, as far as what it's zoned as?
Yes, it'll become an institutional zone district.
Jeff?
And under that institutional, that still requires a conditional use permit, or is this a permitted use in the new institution?
As it's drafted currently, we have it as a permitted use. Whether that makes it through the whole process, we'll see. But yeah, right now it's listed as a permitted use in the draft.
David?
Wasn't there an issue raised or the point raised that any municipal projects would be subject to review at the Plan Commission base? Or was that just proposed and that was result of the shelter?
Well, those reviews are state statute, and they require building architectural reviews and locations for buildings. So the stormwater facility wouldn't fall under that, since there's no
Well,
no
but
buildings.
maybe one of the things to discuss, or when we look at that part of the
Next
new
step.
ordinance, is that those are all subject to review with conditions.
Keep that in the back of your mind when we get to that. Here, you
Just doing the
bring it up.
annexation, right?
We're just doing the annexation right now, but yeah.
But that would relieve, I think, a whole bunch of these questions that may continue to come
Yeah.
up.
Any other technical questions? Seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? We'd love to hear from you. Once, twice. Okay, back to the commission.
Move approval.
Second.
By Kathy, seconded by Steve, I think. Any discussion, motion? Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be in favor of the annexation, but again, what I want to voice here to make sure it's only reason I'm voting is because staff indicated that there would be a conditional use requirement on this particular zoning so that we can actually review that pond until such time that what Dave brought up, that we can discuss that on the larger zoning and how we handle these types of things so that we can have at least some review of those retention ponds going in.
And it is required per code.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Boysak?
Aye.
Holmes?
Aye.
Hintz?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Crop?
Aye.
Gray?
Aye.
Wojtek?
Aye.
Motion carried 7-0.
Okay, moving on, item number 3, planned development review to allow development of a 2-tenant retail building located east of 1075 North Washburn Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, this is our location, and it shouldn't be too unfamiliar to you all, being that Lowe's came through I guess a few years ago now, yeah. But it's on North Washburn Street. You can see it outlined in blue. Consists of two properties right now. First larger piece is about 4.5 acres, and there's a secondary piece on the southeast corner of it that's about a half acre. This little half-acre piece is currently owned by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and we are recommending a condition that either, when you see the site plan, that a cross-access easement be provided through that site or it be acquired. Petitioner has indicated that they are in the process of acquiring that piece as well, but it is included in this area. The zoning for the entire area is C2 plan development, and in 2007 Lowe's came through for a very large plan development that had a conceptual plan for this entire site, and it did include a conceptual plan for this corner as well. It's also in the Highway 41 corridor overlay, and you can see the land uses out here are predominantly commercial, a variety of commercial, gas stations, big box retail, I guess hotel and service, typical frontage road types of uses. Both lots right now are vacant. So you can see now there's sort of looks like some type of an access drive that was there at one point, just in the dirt. And this is vacant as well, but both these lots are vacant, as is the parcel to the north. To the west, again, you have the big box, you have Lowe's, and to the south you have some single-family residential, obviously the highway and the frontage road to the east. Go to the next one. So this is just kind of a zoom in of the site. You can see there are two features on the site that are pre-existing. One is a multi-tenant sign that was part of that Lowe's plan development that's located here, and this shared access drive, internal roadway that leads from Washburn into what I've called in your staff report, I think I called it internal four-way intersection, internal roadway four-way intersection, something like that. It was hard to pick a term for it. This actually straddles the lot line, and you'll see later we have a base standard modification for that access drive. Let me go down. Now, what was submitted and what you have in your documents is a little bit different. We received, after the staff report was written, an updated site plan, which is down here, a revised submittal based on a lot of the comments that came from staff, and I'll highlight those in a second. But this is the original site plan that you had seen. But you can see it's a two-tenant sort of medium-sized box development. The first building on the west side is 35,000 square feet, and it's a proposed Dick's Sporting Goods store, so retail use. And the east side is a 12,150 square feet PetSmart retail type of use. You can see on the south side of the lot itself, you have a lot of, this is your loading refuse. There's a refuse area here, actually it's here, and loading areas for trucks, the access drive. The north and the west. North is the primary parking lot. The building is oriented to the north, so the fronts of the building and the entrances are going to face north towards this access road, and also towards the future developed area on the north, which is now vacant commercial area. You have a smaller parking lot here on the west side, if I go back to this picture, that would be abutting sort of a smaller parking lot area on the Lowe's site as well. The building itself takes up about 21% of the lot. The parking lot and other service drive areas is about 54%, and the landscaped area and green space makes up about 25%. I'm going to kind of go to the next one, and now there's a bunch of stuff going on here. These were changes from what you've got in your packets to what we received now. So I'll kind of go over some of those changes, but go over the general plan as well. So as designed, the building meets all of our setback and dimensional regulations in the zoning code for the C2 district and the Highway 41 corridor, with two exceptions. One is the north lot line setback, which obviously needs to be a 0-foot setback. It has that shared access drive that does not only service this property, but it will service the property to the north, and it also services the Lowe's site, which then again cuts up to the north and exits onto North Washburn at that spot as well. And the second one that was necessary was the south lot line setback, which was originally proposed at a 5-foot setback. Subsequently, they have come in, that has been increased to 15 feet in some locations and 12.5 feet in other locations. That was an issue for staff. We obviously didn't have any problem with the north setback. Makes sense. The southern setback, we took had some concerns. It is adjacent to residential directly to the south that's in the town. So we had requested in the staff report and to the petitioner to try to increase that. We said we could support a 15-foot setback, which would be the setback that would be required in the regular Highway 41 corridor overlay. The C2 district would require a 10-foot setback. Because the housing is there, it kicks it into a 19-foot 2-inch setback. So you have a variety of required setbacks. We had asked the petitioner to go back and take a look at increasing that any way they can. Obviously, they don't have a lot of room north to south, a little more room east to west. But I believe what they had done is they had done some reconfiguration of the parking lot. I believe they removed a parking row, group of parking, and did some other changes to some of the dimensions in the north side. And they did increase that to 12 feet, 12.5 in a few locations, and 15 in the remainder of the locations, and more once you get to the west. So originally, we had thought we couldn't support a reduced setback there under 15, but we are revising that. We could support the reduction to what's proposed at 12.5 to 15, with the condition that vegetation and other types of screening are put in that setback area. For one, to buffer the residential properties to the south, but also to kind of break up the view shed that you're going to get as you're traveling up North Washburn, seeing the back of the building. And when we get to the elevations, you'll kind of see. Obviously, it's a service area. It's not going to have a front facade, but it will be visible. So this landscaping would help to break that up. Talk about parking. They basically have two drives right now being proposed. One is the shared access drive, and another one partially on this property, and another one is the service drive to the south. That is going to require a base standard modification. Properties with under 600 feet of frontage, this one has about 450 feet, are only permitted one driveway access. Staff is in support of the second access one. This is proposed to be a very low volume service entrance, even though it does wrap around to the parking lot. Be primarily used for service vehicles, which is much lower volume. And the northern drive access, as I explained, doesn't only service this site, it's going to service multiple acreage and multiple developments throughout the area. So when you look at the entire section, I'm going to go back a little bit. It didn't go quite far enough out, but as it runs around this area, you have about 1,800 feet of frontage. And proposed right now, 1, 2, 3 driveways accessing it at 1,800, which would meet that 600 distance. So we really didn't have any problem with that at all. Another access control variances that's going to be needed is this driveway, as it was located at 5 feet off the lot line, would have only been about 80 feet from the adjoining driveway to the south. I'll go back to that, which is hard to see, but you can see the driveway comes out here to the south. With the increase of setback to 15 feet, that would increase it to a 90-foot. With a 90-foot separation, and also the thought process of this being a very low volume driveway, we would support that access control variance to allow the 90 feet of separation rather than the 125 feet that's required for typical driveways. I'm going to go to the next one again. Internal circulation, as you can tell with the landscape islands and the islands at the ends of the drive entry areas, very well defined. Circulation is obvious, one side onto the sidewalk. Circulation circulates around the site completely. It accesses through a pre-existing cross-access easements, the Lowe's site, and also this driveway which leads to this primary intersection. The one thing that we did have an issue with when we looked at it, originally this driveway entrance from the shared drive was very close to this four-lane intersection, or this four-way intersection. Staff had some concerns with left-hand movements coming out of this driveway into this area, as well as future concerns if the north property were to be developed, have a driveway as well. We had requested that they shift that over, moving it from this drive lane over to the next. And as you can see on the revised plan, they did move it over. They also moved this drive over to keep a better separation over to this location as well. So those concerns were kind of addressed in the resubmittal. PED access on the original plan basically was only located in front of the building. It didn't extend anywhere else. You can see the sidewalk coming out of Lowe's going through that intersection kind of ended at this point. They showed a sidewalk just sort of leading to this area. We requested that a walkway be put in at some point connecting to the greater development area and also connecting to North Washburn. So they did. I'll go to this one again, it's bigger. They did run a walkway down this west setback line and would connect over to this main walkway, and then which again would connect out to the Washburn. So you do have pedestrian access, and alternatively bicycles could use that as well. So that you can see I marked it as condition number 9. When you see our conditions, we'll have that. Parking stalls themselves were originally proposed to be 221 stalls. Fell well within our range of a minimum of 157 and a maximum of 235. I believe that was probably reduced by about 10 to 13 stalls with the shift in that self-lot line, but still well within our range. So we don't have any issue with parking counts. Signage and lighting. No lighting plans were submitted, so obviously they will have to meet code requirements for lighting. Signage, as I had mentioned, there's an existing 60-foot pylon sign up at this northeast corner. It's a multi-tenant sign. They would be utilizing that ground sign for wall signs. You'll see the elevations are shown to have some wall signage on them at each one of the tenant spaces. Code would allow up to 30% of the wall space. This, without doing the calculations, I can tell you is way under 30%. But I'll bring that up that it would have to come through during regular site plan review. That signage package would have to be included as well. I'm going to go to landscaping. This is a concept landscaping plan. It's not super specific, although they did do a great job with calling everything out. But it's a conceptual landscape plan. You can see the islands in the parking lot are landscaped. You have a few biofiltration areas in here that would not have trees. Landscaping around all sides of the development with the exclusion of the south side. And you kind of heard our concerns with the south side already. We do feel that some vegetation needs to be placed in this area. We also felt that this section of the Washburn frontage should also have some increased landscaping. There is some here, but try to increase this landscaping to be a buffer to the service and loading area. Obviously the building wall is sitting here, but you do still have quite a visible area. So we are recommending that as well. We noticed that the internal landscape islands were a little bit undersized. Petitioner has increased those. Also, they're showing 1 tree on each island. Code would require 2. So that would have to be revised as part of the landscape plan. And the one other thing that we noticed is this long stretch of parking is over 180 feet in length. Anything over 100, up to 180 requires a landscape island break. In talking with the petitioner, we had said a walkway. If this is your walkway connection, we could support the walkway connection, the sidewalk. So you can see on their plan they did create that as a sidewalk area. So we are in support of the base standard modification to remove this island as it becomes a walkway area. stormwater detention for the site. There's nothing showing on this site plan. When the Lowe's development, you've heard this a couple times now, but when the Lowe's development was developed, that detention basin was oversized to take in all the projected stormwater. So this site would be going over to that stormwater detention area. I can get to the last thing here, is the sort of the building design. The structure is really 2 tenant spaces, and they have somewhat individual architecture. As you can see, the PetSmart architecture is a little bit different from the Dick's, but they are very cohesive in their design. So they do generally match material and color schemes. The Dick's portion, so I'll talk about them in two spots. The Dick's portion is a little bit taller. It has a general flat roof at about 28.5 feet, and it has this larger sort of parapet wall that's about 43.5 or 43.25 feet high, sort of at their main entrance area. The building exterior is predominantly smooth and split-face concrete block, but the north facade, which is this facade, which faces the front, also includes columns of brick veneer, and you can kind of see those. They're spaced at about 25 feet apart, with larger columns sort of at the entrance, encapsulating this parapet wall. They also have horizontal painted bands that run across the entire front facade that kind of also help to break up the mass of the front and also provide a lot of articulation. So this was the original that came in. You don't see many changes on this front facade for Dick's. It retained all of its elements. The one thing it did do is they did reduce the signage above the parapet wall, which would be required by code as well. The main entrance is curtain glass, doors, and window systems. It is bordered with color change. This is more of a green color to kind of differentiate and focus in on that entrance area. The painted bands are the only element that's carried over to the west side of the building, which is actually here. This is the west side of the building. And the south facade for the original submittal had basically no architectural, or was free of any type of architectural ornamentation. I'll go kind of to the Dick's. The Dick's uses very similar materials. This again is, or excuse me, the PetSmart. This is the original. It hasn't changed drastically, but a little bit difference to the entrance. The columns were narrowed up a little bit, kind of defined a little bit more around the curtain glass. You have some EIFS facade for this front entryway area, again with the signage on it. And there is also a 5-foot knee wall of different colored block running across the front. I guess I'll just kind of go over the other facade. So this was the original. It changed a little bit, but not drastically. This facade is the facade that would be facing west, would be facing Washburn. You can see the original submittal, though it wasn't completely blank, it did have a nice architectural feature. It has some height variation. Also, you have quite a few setbacks here. This is that loading area in the back and the south side. We did ask that they increase a little bit of the architectural feel on that west facade. So what they did is they added the knee wall onto the facade as well, and they also wrapped that horizontal banding around to this back. So with that, you're going to see a lot more articulation on this western facade, or excuse me, the eastern facade. If I go to the south and to the west facade, so this is the west facade that faces the parking lot and the outdoor storage area of Lowe's. They did wrap the horizontal bands on there. Staff was less concerned with this, as it's not really going to be visible at all. But we did have some concerns on that south facade again. We had felt this was just a little too blank. Even with the landscaping, it was going to be slightly visible from northbound traffic on North Washburn. And so we had recommended, we do understand it's a service and loading area, it's not a front entry or anything. But so we did recommend that they try to carry over some of that articulation that was on the other sides. And what they had done is they did wrap the horizontal bands around that side to kind of give it that articulation. And again, this is the separation between the Dick's and the PetSmart. So all of our architectural concerns were addressed in the resubmittal, in the second submittal. But I kind of went over those because what you have in your packet and what is going to be forwarded on are going to be the original submittals as well. So that kind of goes to our recommendations. We are recommending approval of the development plan with conditions, and you're going to see some of these conditions have a little red star on them. And I just wanted to point out, staff is recommending leaving those as conditions as you forward this to the council, only because what's in your packets are the original submittal. So the revised submittal, though, I'm going to address them, that they have addressed a lot of these conditions. So the first is that Lot 1 and Lot 2 either be combined or a cross-access agreement is provided for that southern driveway. Base standard modification to the north side yard setback. Base standard modification to the southern side yard setback. And we are recommending changing that from the 15 feet to the 12.5 and 15 feet as proposed. Base standard modification to allow the 2 accesses onto the site. Modification to reduce that driveway separation distance from 125 to 90. A base standard modification for the elimination of the landscape island along the western row with the condition that it's a pedestrian sidewalk. I do have the star on there because that was shown on the plan. Installation of landscape buffer and or other screening along that south lot line. Westernmost entrance to the parking lot be shifted to the east to line up with the next parking row, which again is asterisked. Extend the pedestrian walkways, which again was shown on the revised plan, and that the building design is enhanced on the east and south facades with elements to provide articulation and or breaks in the wall plane per approval of the Department of Community Development, and I'm asterisking that one as well. So there's a lot of them on there, but half of them are really have been addressed already.
Anything else, Coach?
No, sir.
All right, technical questions. Start with Mr. David.
3 questions.
Three.
One is, can we go look at the east elevation, please?
This would be the east elevation facing Washburn.
The question, or the observation I'd like to make is, I don't think we ask enough of that elevation, and perhaps even the south, that with banding, there could be some more creative things, such as, let's say what was done in City Center, where windows were painted and things of that nature. I mean, this is facing Highway 41 also, and as a general design center, I don't think we ask enough. Otherwise, it's going to be a blank wall. You asked for, next questioner is, I'm feeling comfortable just saying intensive on the south boundary for the landscaping. I think that I'm not sure what that, there's what it means and how intensive that is, but intensive to the fact that it's almost screening.
Yeah, we do put in there that it's buffer or screen.
But but buffer sometimes means fencing. I think that landscaping is the only
Preferable.
would be acceptable, at least for my. And then the third, I don't know how much of an issue is, but I am concerned about this southern access. I understand the service, that it's the purpose of it is really to service the back end, bringing in trucks, but in that light, it looks like it connects to Lowe's. I would suggest that we close off the parking lot, the access from on the west side of the building, so that there's no auto transportation within the site.
So you close off this exit.
You close that off.
Let me go to the aerial just so we have a. That would be at this location?
No, and I'm sorry, not necessarily that one, but within the building proper. If you go back to the so that you have no north-south access right there, you close that off.
That is most likely an issue for fire. Fire needs to circulate around the
they
building.
need to be able to circulate
Right,
around.
and it's probably also, this connection leading west to Lowe's is also, I suspect, an access way for fire to get to the back of Lowe's.
And I guess that I would temper that or question that in what we look at with what is good traffic planning and utilization of Washburn, and whether or not, at least then there should be speed control bumps or something like that to at least make people, think about not using that as another access, because it's just going to be like water will find wherever it can go through.
Other technical questions? Go ahead, Gary.
Yes. So it's my understanding that the staff is asking the commission to approve the original recommendation with the original conditions?
Correct, yeah. What was submitted is what you'd be approving with the conditions. I just wanted to highlight that a lot of them are probably not going to be relevant.
Okay. The second question I have is in regards to the parapet of 43 and a quarter feet. Do you know what the current code says in regards to height limit on that?
45 feet is the maximum.
45 feet. Okay, thank you.
Other technical questions? Jeff?
I'm confused now. The recommendations in here is what we're going to approve, not the ones that you had up on the board?
They're the same. There's just the asterisks that I had up on the PowerPoint are ones that were addressed with the resubmittal.
The one I see here says the setback goes from 19.2 to 15.
That one, that's right. That one you'd have to
15 to
change.
12.
Excuse me, that one
That's
you'd
what
have
I'm
to
getting
change. Yes, I'm sorry. That one you need to change. That's why I put it in red on the screen.
All right.
Other technical?
Good catch,
Sorry. Other technical questions? Okay, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Come on up, sir.
Grant Schwab, 601 Oregon Street. Here on behalf of the developer, and I guess if you guys have any questions that you'd like to bounce off of us, we're free to answer those.
Let's start with Kathy and then Jeff.
I have the same current concern that David does about the east wall and the south wall in terms of articulation. Something more than just the banding, and I don't know what it would be, but I don't know why it wouldn't have to be expensive, I don't think. But could we do something more? Did you understand my question?
It's kind of a blank wall. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of a blank wall, and it's still blank, even with the banding that you've suggested.
I mean, possibly more landscaping.
No, something on the building.
Something on the building.
I don't know if it's...
Continue maybe the columns on the side?
Yeah, maybe the column feature, maybe not as many on the side as on the front. I don't know. I'm not an architect. I just know that I agree with David. I think this is not, it doesn't meet our standards. Otherwise, the development is not.
And some of this isn't up to us. These are prototype building plans that we've taken from PetSmart and Dick's, and then every change like that, we have to go back and get their approval because it changes what their prototype is. So I guess...
I don't think this is a difficult change. I mean, from my perspective, this is not difficult.
Kathy, are you thinking something as simple as maybe a vertical color change? Like I'm just speaking out loud here, but make, a column out of the knee wall colored split face that runs up to break up those walls or something like that?
I can't tell you what's appropriate. I just know we need something.
You just feel these two sections need
Yeah,
something?
those two sections, and then, of course, the back south elevation. Now it's got all the banding, doesn't it?
It does. They've increased the
That's the
banding,
south.
and they also increased the setback, and we'll be adding landscaping there as well. So, staff was less concerned with the south elevation as we were with the east elevation. However, we thought the treatment that they had put on, as far as the banding and the knee wall, in our opinion, was
Maybe it's better, but with this rendering, you can't tell.
Can you compare the two, David, back to...
Sure. This is the original east elevation, and here's the revised. And keep in mind what you see, this center portion is stepped out. There's also this loading area, which we're asking for additional screening here, is pushed in when you look at the site plan. So you have different elevations. It looks, from the elevation, it looks like it's one big long wall, but they're really, excuse me, on the south side, it would really be kind of set in.
So
I'm sorry, it's this
shading,
one.
lighting would make it look different.
Right.
Jeff and then Steve?
Yeah, and just following up on what Dave said earlier, and it made some sense on that south side drive so we don't have to try and control some of that. If you were to put some kind of speed bumps along there, would that inhibit the truck traffic that would come in there?
I can't answer that. It could. Our only purpose is if we did not have that rear exit, then we'd have, in our original plan, we had it circulating back through the main parking lot up there. So, and that was just, it was kind of messy. So this is intended solely for trucks to use. And honestly, you know, I understand what David was saying. We don't really want Lowe's, and Lowe's does not have a right to drive down there. That doesn't mean their people aren't going to use it, but we kind of also have to keep that open to get to the back of the building, because if, as David said, fire issues, and if somebody drove down there and all of a sudden couldn't get out and they got to back up.
No, and I'm not saying to close it off. I'm saying, you know, down where, on the side right there, where that you know, entrance is right there, to put like a speed bump there to kind of.
Speed bumper, speed table, which is, it's basically a raised, well, you know what a speed bump is. A table is even less raised up, maybe.
I mean,
like a
you're
foot or
going to
a foot and a half.
discourage people from going that way. It's not going to mean them, it's not going to make them stop.
Right.
It's just going to discourage it, to Dave's point, to try and discourage some of that car traffic from going up and down there. I mean, they're still going to go there, but you know, I don't know if that would make any difference. I don't know. I'm not a traffic person, so I don't know if that would make any difference or not.
We've utilized them on some public streets, and other private developments have utilized them as well. But, you know.
Without issues for fire trucks or...
Oh, right, yeah, there's been no issue. But they're designed for that.
Well, a couple of them are Congress, actually, I think. Steve?
Yeah, kind of what Kathy and David said, you know, the east side is also a facade. This is sort of kind of like on a corner, even though it's a curved corner. And it is facing Highway 41. We're kind of, the design here kind of treats that east facade as the back of the building when it's not. So I think there's got something, a little more to do than just striping the bricks. I don't know what it is, I'm not an architect, but we're looking at
Something vertical.
We're looking at two facades in this building.
David?
Grant said something, and it triggered from the development of that whole area. And it went back to when we talked about Menards and what Menards looked like, and was it going to be compatible with the hospital, and you know, the similar construction. And the response was somewhat of a dollar and cents, but no, this is what the corporate design is, except if you went to Lannon and you looked at what Menards look like, you went to West Bend and you saw what Menards was built like. These facilities have multiple design packages, and so asking, I think that's sort of a false thing to say. Well, that we can't, that there aren't that there's other ways to look at it. And the fact of the matter is that we've tried to treat 41 as the front yard, and a blank wall isn't a front yard, or with a little banding. And I'm surprised, quite frankly, that staff hasn't asked for more, because we've been consistent in trying to upgrade Highway 41. Here we have a clear palette, and there are, I suspect, there are multiple architectural details that are available, and I suspect if we looked at similar developments and we took the time to look around, that they're out there even on PetSmart.
I mean, I guess I tend to disagree. We keep calling it a blank wall. I mean, there's a bump out, there's a knee wall. I mean, you guys are going to have to tell us what you want, because, I mean, it isn't a blank wall. I mean, it is, but there's bump outs, there's architectural features to it. You know, we addressed in David in the city did point it out. Originally, it was kind of a blank wall, but we've done things to enhance it. And I mean, honestly, I can tell you with 100% certainty, and I tell you if I thought otherwise, I mean, I think it does represent the building well, and I don't think it's something somebody's going to drive by and say, man, that's, what were they thinking when they built it? And it's tough because we're not looking at a 3D rendering of it. We're looking at a flat wall where there are bump outs and stuff like that.
And that was, the thing with staff is that when you do have the bump outs, you do create shadow lines.
And with the lighting and other
And-
stuff and
right.
landscaping, it's not going to look like a flat wall.
Oh.
Well, and then, if you will, to balance it off, then it's how intensive is the landscaping on the east.
And part of that too is we could have actually fit more building on this site. We chose not to keep a bigger buffer. If you look at the setback, because we originally were looking at adding some more square footage in between the PetSmart and the Dick's, and we decided instead of doing that to keep a bigger buffer from Washburn, more green area, and it just made the site look bigger versus trying to stick another 4,000 feet in there and get it right to the property line. So, all this stuff was taken into consideration, and we wanted a project that not only worked but looked nice too, and it wasn't trying to make as much money we could with spending as least as we could. This was all taken into consideration.
Other questions for the petitioner, as long as he's standing up there? Personally, I get everybody's point, but I think you did a good job of kind of getting this about as good as it could into that particular site. It's kind of a curved corner thing. There's a lot of exposure. It's very difficult to work with that, so I appreciate it. Go ahead, Kath.
Well, some of those trees, are there going to be trees? There are on the landscape plan, right?
They're
Are
showing
those
some
shrubs?
trees.
No, are those trees or shrubs?
I believe those are trees. I would have to.
We actually had there's like a landscape engineer from Wolpert who's doing it, and they're going to work with the city to get exactly what needs to be done. The trees will be defined as to what they are, and
Well, then my concern might be mitigated if those are large, tall trees. I need vertical on this.
versus just shrub.
Versus, versus a shrub. And so if we had tall trees there, it's not going to interfere with anybody's sight line or anybody's.
Yeah, and
And then my concern would be mitigated if we could be assured that would happen.
And clearly, we'll work with the city and
Some of those
have
5
lots
things
ready.
are large trees, tall trees.
Anything else for the petitioner? All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else here to speak to this item today? Okay, seeing on, back to the commission for discussion. David?
And I'm sorry, I don't have my packet in front of me. What is the, sort of the landscaping condition that we have in there currently?
Well, the landscaping condition that we have now is installation of landscape buffer and/or other screening along the south lot line to be approved by the Department of Community Development. And that is pretty much it.
I would like to at least suggest this.
Otherwise, it would have to meet code. Otherwise, it would have to meet code. Well, it depends from a staff standpoint, we're going to be looking at it as a screen and buffer. So not just visual, like a fence, but also a buffer to the residents to the south. It's I guess, how you trust staff with our review of the landscape plan. But that's our intent for that south lot line.
Is to finish that thought, and I would buy off with what Kathy perhaps was suggesting, and that is whether it's more landscaping on the east side or a combination of landscaping and architectural detail on the building. And I can't believe what I'm saying, but I would leave it up to staff for the discretion. But if they understand what we're asking for, is that
charge staff to
that this is as much a front yard, the east side is as much a front yard.
Vertical landscaping. Together.
Yeah,
Vertical landscaping, not just landscaping.
You could add that as a condition. Now, condition 10 is already going to say the east and south facade be enhanced per Department of Community Development, and I believe we heard what you're saying, that you want some type of extra on that east facade, and then increase the landscaping designed to be vertical, designed to break up those two sections of
Well, I liked David's
of walls.
vertical, architectural or landscaping detail.
Okay.
Combination.
Gary?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion, and it's probably going to be a 2 or 3 step motion, or step process, but anyhow, I move that the original recommendation and the original conditions be approved.
With the change to number 3 for 12 and a half feet?
Well, if you want to do it in 1 step, that's fine. If you want to do it in 2 steps or 3 steps, that's fine.
You were the steps.
That's usually how we do is just add
Right.
Why we do it all at once?
Okay.
It's usually what
Okay, number 3 will be, what, change to base standard modifications will be for the reduction of the south side setback from 19 feet, 2 inches to, what, 15 feet and 12 feet?
Well, 12 feet, 12 and a half feet, yeah, 12 feet.
12 and a half to 15 feet.
To 15 feet, yep.
Okay.
Motion on the floor.
And silent on the landscaping on the east,
I think we put that in, Dave.
Well, Gary, we have
That's
to
not what
put
he
it in
said.
his motion.
and that's not what,
We can make an amendment after he makes a motion.
So, send that to David to take a look at. Number 10, I want it back, but number 10, that I think covers landscaping.
ten is only the
10 is just for the architecture.
architectural.
If you wanted to, you would have to add, I think, 11 for the landscaping, increased vertical landscaping and architectural details on the east facade. You could add as 11.
Well, he's made a motion, so is there a second for that motion? If not,
Is the motion complete? Is that it? Because you said there were steps, so didn't know if you had more stuff to go with it.
Well, you said that we don't do steps, so I tried not to do steps.
Well, Gary, I guess just to clarify, you're changing the number 3 to add 2.5 to 15 feet instead of the 15? And then were you adding?
12 and a half.
Excuse me, 12 and a half to 15, and then were you adding
2.5.
condition 11?
I just mentioned change number 3. I didn't mention
Okay.
yet about the 11, you know, I mean, you know.
So the motion only has the amendment to number 3.
I guess what we need to do is, as a commission, to figure out what we're doing, and then vote on it. You know, I'm not sure if this is as complicated as it seems to be coming.
Well, Gary, you can either make the motion with 11, saying the increased vertical landscaping on the east facade, and include that as part of your motion.
Okay,
And that would-
that's fine. If it's the commission's intent, that's fine with me.
so there's a motion on the floor that's got to change to number 3 in addition to 11, which deals
Additional
with
11.
landscaping.
Yep, increased
Increased
vertical
vertical
landscaping on the east
All right.
facade.
Is that finished now, or we?
Yes.
Well, I thought you wanted something on the south side.
yeah, and I'm looking at, you mentioned the south side in here, and that was, let's see.
Number 10.
Sorry?
Number 10. And
Well,
the buffer is number 7.
Yeah, that was, if it's not necessary to put, you know, to jazz that up a little more, but, you know,
I think
if we
the-
understand.
The
what-
minutes will reflect it, and I think staff understands what you're looking for.
So I would, then just the inclusion of 11 with the,
So that's the motion. Is there a second?
All right, second.
Second.
Just ask for clarification. 11 was just increased vertical landscaping on the east side.
Yes.
Okay.
I thought we said give them the option either to put vertical architectural design and/or vertical landscaping. To
Okay.
just give them the option to do it. Right?
You're amending the motion, right?
Yes.
Accept
Well,
that?
I
You
think
okay with that,
it's
Gary?
just sort of modifying the.
Right. You're okay with
Right.
that?
You okay with
Yes,
that,
I'm
Gary?
okay.
All right.
All right, then second.
Any discussion? Any more discussion? Steve?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a hang-up with the vertical landscaping, where we tall, skinny trees, no branches. I think the hang-up here is we're talking screening and buffering, to me, says just a row of nondescript bushes. I think what we're going to define is something with architectural integrity. If it goes up, if it goes sideways, it's got to be more than just a screen and a buffer. It has to be architecturally, landscaping that is architecturally pleasing and compatible with the building and that location.
I think they got that. I would just, as a response to that, when we were talking about vertical landscaping, I wasn't thinking about arborvitae, I was thinking about a big tree. So, like, for example,
Something
Quick Trip
that's
has, Quick Trip has oak trees planted along. Those
Something
are
that's
going
not
to be,
3 or 4 feet off the
they're
ground,
gonna be
something that
big.
goes up, where
Yeah.
it changes the vertical line.
right.
I think we're going.
Guys get
But I think the staff gets what we're trying to do.
I think we all probably get it.
Yeah. Should we keep talking about this, or should we?
No. Call the,
Let's talk about it.
call the motion.
Okay, let's, if there's no further discussion, then let's take a vote.
Grisak,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Kemps,
Aye.
Cummings, Pop,
Aye?
Gray,
This could be a short.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 7-0.
Other business, we have water tower reconstruction, pardon me.
I was going to call for the AED.
Jeff that said that.
Or an
Jeff
AED.
said that. I'm gonna kick him.
Oh, did you want to use?
No, it's fine.
You do.
Mr. Godey is going to load up the presentation that was shared at the, in your packets, and included at the last stakeholders committee for the Marion Road water tower replacement project. So I'll let him kind of talk about what has been going on at the stakeholder committee meetings and answer any questions that you guys might have.
Well, before I jump into that, I guess I'm a little unclear as to what the Plan Commission is actually looking for. Are you wanting just a recap of where things sit with the stakeholder committee? Do you want a brief run-through of this presentation with some of the details on it, and then go into that? Really kind of open to what the Plan Commission is.
David seems to have an answer to that question. Kathy, too.
Because I had asked Darren if we could schedule something. What I had heard by the by, if you will, had to do with the location, the physical location,
Okay.
and and perhaps that it was going to be moved, but then that the vacated tower property was going to be left as grass or something, so for future expansion and or replacement or something to that effect. And I was concerned about making that kind of a decision in context of the redevelopment of the of not only where the water tower is, the existing water tower is, but with the, I assume, the Lamico building and that property. And so that's what I came to hear about.
Okay.
Kathy, Joseph?
I'm for an executive summary. I've read this, so I don't need.
Okay.
I'm
very
with Kathy.
Okay, I will not do a presentation then, that's fine by me if everyone's comfortable with that.
Yes.
You like pictures, though.
You like pictures. Well, unfortunately, you didn't get the good pictures, so we'll have to pass those around. Actually, does everyone know Steve Brand, the Utilities Director? He's
Hi.
here with me this evening.
One of the things I want to share with you is, one of the pages that was left off was some more of the creative color schemes and things that we're talking about at the stakeholder committee. And I apologize that these didn't get on there, but this is just kind of a starting point or a part of the discussion that the stakeholder group is looking at. So I just want to pass these around and show you there's lots of different options and lots of different things that we're discussing as part of the stakeholder committee.
And I believe those are available in the group that's online, that you could actually get a look at it in color online.
Okay.
So if that's the case, I'm going to skip ahead through a bunch of these slides and get right to the property and location discussion.
Questions, yes.
Hold it for a moment, David, please.
No, I'm just.
All right. This is the map that's right there for trying to get people orientated. The former Morton Pharmacy building is located just down here. This hatching is the very north edge of the Morton Pharmacy building. The proposed bank site is right up in this area. Just hidden behind this picture is the AccuCom building. The existing tower is here on the parcel of land shaped through the right-of-way like this. So that's the existing tower. Lamico circles around, Lamico's parcel circles around the existing water tower. What has been proposed as a means to expedite construction as well as provide a more robust system during construction and limit risks to the city's water supply system of having 750,000 gallons of storage and water tower out of commission for the reconstruction is to look for a site very nearby so that we do not have to redo all of the infrastructure serving the site to get the larger mains to this area, to build the tower on an adjacent site, allowing it to be built while the existing tower is still in service. Once this new tower is up and functional, to tear down the old tower. This is the location that's being looked at this point in time currently on the RDA land. It's right off the back of, again, right off the back of the AccuCom building. If it goes into this site, what's been talked about is that we would want to retain a parcel of land adequate to rebuild a tower again in 75 years so that this one could stay online while we rebuilt here. But it wouldn't necessarily have to be this exact parcel of land. If it made more sense to become back here so that the Lamico site didn't have a chunk out of the middle of it, forcing it to be a U-shaped, we're open to those type of things, and that's what was meant as part of the kind of reconfiguring the parcel lines comment that was in the notes, that just to look at an area in this very close proximity, but not necessarily the exact specific location that the existing tower is on. As far as plans for the future for that, parkland, anything like that, nothing like that's been discussed yet. Just that it would be open space that would not have a permanent structure put on it that couldn't be relocated, moved at the point in time a water tower needs to be constructed again.
Steve, is there any specific reason why the tower itself has to be located here, so close to the Riverwalk and things of that nature? Is there a technical reason, you know, from the water pressure that you guys need, that it has to be here versus further into the city, away from the Riverwalk?
There's not so much a pressure issue as it is the system is designed, the entire system since 1936 has been designed around having a water tower in this general vicinity.
All right.
All the larger water mains from the plant, the transmission mains run to these water towers, get the water to the towers, back out of the towers and into the smaller pipes throughout the system. Right. So that is the issue in relocating. Physically, is it possible? Will the system function? Yes. The dollars to redo the infrastructure, it's very, very substantial.
Yeah, I get it.
Go ahead, Gary.
I got a couple of questions. First of all, no, wait a minute, let me rephrase it.
Yeah.
How is the decision going to be made in regards to this design of structure of the actual water tower? I mean, in the packet, there's many styles of water towers. Is it basically going to be a city decision, or is it going to be a community decision, or?
There's the stakeholders committee that has met on February 5th. They're meeting again on March 5th, this upcoming Thursday. They are providing input onto that tower design. Essentially, what has happened to this point in time is they've really kind of narrowed down onto two styles of tanks. The two styles, these are the four basic styles of water tower tanks you can have. And Steve, please jump in if I make an error on these types. This spheroid, the multi-leg, which is what's out there currently, composite, concrete, or the fluted style, which is similar to what is on 9th and Washburn, also on Furnow. The committee has really settled in on one of these two as being the preference for the area.
Okay.
So
I vote for the spheroid.
Me too, but that's another point.
So, and that's where we're going back to the committee on the 5th with some ideas and things. The sheet that Mr. Brand passed around showed some of the architectural features that can be done on some of these towers. The composite probably have more, and Steve, please jump in here, probably have more options for architectural features, where the spheroid is basically a round metal item. You have limited architectural, you're limited to a paint treatment.
And one of the pictures shows on the composite, so one of them actually has clock faces on it, and another one has windows showing on it. So, something that's more architectural in nature that might fit into a little bit, let me see if I can just kind of point those out. Actually, here's the
like
one
a light
with-
tower.
Yeah, here's one with, this one has kind of the clock features in it, and here's the one that I was talking about with the windows. It actually looks a little bit like an apartment structure. So, those are a couple of the things that are looked at, we were talking about, and also color to try and, match what's, going on behind, as far as development things. And we've also talked about architectural standards for fencing and benches and things like that are currently existing, like at the Public Works Garage and other locations in that area. So we're really trying to look at the details so that we can match in what we're doing to fit in with what's
Do
going
you
on.
think about doing anything like this to have lights so that you can change the colors of the lights during the season?
We're going to talk about some lighting options at the stakeholder meeting and
The other
stuff.
one
So
that was interesting is this one, because you're so close to the water, this almost looks like a lighthouse.
Yep, and so we're going to work with stakeholders, and again, you're all welcome to join us on the 5th.
David has a question or comment?
Well, yeah, and I think that the design is great, and I think that we're not going to get a zebra or a giraffe here. I mean, I'm sure that
It's still a water tower.
that's, yeah. But as I say, where I'm concerned about the planning is and it seems that there's some merit to putting it into a triangular piece of property or whatever, that perhaps almost functions like an outlot on that piece of property. But it's what we do in the existing property and where the existing tower is, so we don't screw that up. That's my concern, that
It's like David has a...
Yeah, well, the one thing I can mention is this whole area right now is zone C3 plan development. So whatever happens on this existing tower site in the interim, or the potential new site, if that's where it's located, are both in a plan development district. So they would be coming through for a development plan, which,
I understand, and I appreciate that.
I don't know if that's what you mean.
But, well, sort of. But I don't want to get caught, and the discussion we had, the location of the city garage, that it was done, and we had very little impact, little input, and I think that there was some serious thoughts about whether or not we made if that was the correct location, the correct decision. I don't want to be caught in this where we're looking at where the city is invested a tremendous amount of money, and that inadvertently that we make a bad choice and limit the redevelopment of a large chunk of property.
Well, that's why I asked the question I asked, because if it's a technical reason, and it sounds like, no, there's not, but yes, there is. I mean, there is from the standpoint of the infrastructure to bring the water there to the water size remain. Okay, I get that, and that's why I asked that question, because of its proximity of where it is, and that land being scarce to develop. But it sounds to me as if technically it probably should reside there, mainly because of the infrastructure that's leading to it, to support why it's there.
Or practically, it's a practical matter.
Yeah, it's a practical matter. I mean, could it be located someplace else? Absolutely. But it's not practical.
Kathy?
In terms of location, I think you said that the potential tower, the proposed tower, it says here, in here it says potential tower, is toward the river from AccuCom. And so I'm wondering if on page 14 in your slides,
I can try to get to that one.
that is in fact a picture of AccuCom and perhaps a residential building beyond it with the couple of water towers super photoshopped in. Yeah, that one. Is that,
That's actually Greendale.
that is Greendale?
Yeah, it's Greendale.
Oh, all right,
and
then-
the reason we had that exhibit was because that shows a co-location. What Greendale does is they've got adjacent sites, and so they're able to build that composite tower, which is the replacement for the leg tank. While the leg tank was still in use, the leg tank will be demoed, and that piece of property will be kept
Oh, all right.
for
Okay,
years
so that's
in the
not us.
future to do that. So
That's
that's
not
not
us.
us, but that's not, I mean, that's not.
So the water tower-
We have going down there, but that's not unlike.
Yeah, okay.
things
The-
going on.
The proposed tower is not on Jackson.
Correct.
No.
It's actually,
off.
it's
It's-
actually right next to the parking lot for AccuCom.
Okay, somebody show me,
I can,
Can you pop in-
AccuCom is literally sitting right here. Jackson's
right there, okay.
Jackson Street is, Jackson
In
Street is
Greenville, yeah.
over, Jackson Street is over on this wall over here a ways yet.
Right.
It's,
Okay,
is the entire.
and so
Morton-
this parking lot below there is what's left of...
This area here, this is the grass area that's currently there. This is the vacant land in the area. This driveway off of Pearl exists. I believe this little circle exists, and it comes up and provides an access way to the backside of AccuCom.
Okay, so that was the parking lot from Morton's and AccuCom that...
Morton's parking lot is here
Okay,
and up here.
oh, okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the parking
Now
lot.
you've already
Jeff.
moved it.
Now that Kathy pointed out some pictures to me, can I ask what on 14 and 15, what the proposed cell phone antenna screening, proposed self-equipment building is for? Is that going on the same site? I mean, I don't want, again, we've had numerous fights about antennas on top of buildings and stuff, and what,
We currently have tenants on the Marion Road Water Tower. It's providing us with about $50,000 a year of income. We are hoping that we can maintain those, but we want to make sure that it is screened and that it is hidden so that we don't have the concerns that come up about the appearance of those antennas and the buildings that are used to support those. So on the one that's on the screen there, that's just actually a collar around. The other place those antennas could be placed are on the top of the tower, which they could be less obvious too. So those are just some of the things that we want everyone to know that we're going to be looking at once we have a tower chosen as to how we're going to screen those things so that it doesn't create an eyesore.
so I guess what I'm probably saying is, do your homework well if you're going to bring it back through this committee on antenna that's going to be protruding from
Absolutely.
either on top of this thing.
Well, you can see on the right, what they've done is they actually put a collar around it. So the
Yeah.
antennas
Can't
actually
even see 'em.
sit behind the collar.
Yeah, and I'm probably fine with something like that.
Right.
Probably not as well if it's sitting up on top and you can just see a bunch of things going up. Because that kind of takes away from the architectural things that you're doing. And then I assume that there's also going to be a building on that site for this cell phone equipment.
And actually, there's just some examples,
Yeah.
ones that are on other sites.
All right, I just wanted to get an understanding. It's not just a water tower. Jeff.
Yeah, no, we're not happy with the way the current site looks. We are going to address that.
Yeah, so it's, what I'm saying is, it's not just a water tower we're looking at, it's a water tower with some cell stuff.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
And we actually love the cell from a planning standpoint. We love the antennas on the water towers. They're the tallest thing around, and so they can take up a lot of the capacity that cell companies come in saying, I want to go on the roofs of other buildings or individual towers. We can hide them here. I mean, it's, and they get a
Well,
little bit.
the collar is not a problem. I don't have a problem with that.
Gary?
Yeah, a question and comment. The question I have is, when's the proposed construction of the new tower? Is it going to be in this year or next year?
It's actually about a 2-year construction timeline, Steve, 16 months to...
I think it can go from 12 to 16 months, I think, is our projected.
So it's going to start what, this year or next year?
But we're hoping we can get it approved and get it started this year. Foundation work and things to go in. I think we're anticipating getting the foundation as much done this year as we can, but there's certain things we cannot do over the winter as far as construction goes. So certainly the finished painting and things like that would have to go into 16.
Okay, my comment is I appreciate the information that's given to the commission, and thank you very much, and please continue to keep us informed, because I personally think it's very useful to have this information, take a look at it.
Thank you.
And I think it's going to help as you go through the plan development process, when that goes through, because they'll already be up to speed.
All right, other comments or questions, gentlemen? You guys have anything else to share with us?
Again, we would invite anybody that wants to join us for our next stakeholder meeting on the 5th. Please feel free to come.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to comment on that as well. On the 5th, you also have the Plan Commissioner Workshop in Lena Library. So everybody got this big packet. New Plan Commissioner's Handbook. The last one you had was probably 10 years old. I think it was from 2002 or even before. This one's only 3 years old, 2012, so it's much more accurate. You don't need it for the workshop, but it's good to have it.
It's useful to have.
Yes.
Stakeholders meeting 6 p.m. at the Senior Center.
Any other business today for us, sir?
No, sir.
Motion to
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.